Benjamin. And the rest of the people he sent every man to his tent. And Jonathan smote the garrison of the Philistines that was in Geba. And the Philistines heard of it, and Saul blew the trumpet throughout all the land, saying, "Let the Hebrews hear." So now the Bible isn't directly telling us whether Saul and Jonathan were in tandem in this action or if this was Jonathan behaving on his own. Because we see there was a split there, that Saul had his 2,000 men, Jonathan had his 1,000 with him. It is believed that this action was on Jonathan's alone. And we're going to take that context because we're going to go in a little bit later of some other actions that kind of prove that that's how Jonathan rolled. And so Jonathan brings this great victory here. And so we will also see that Saul tends to be the kind of person who likes to wait around until something good comes to him. Jonathan's the kind of person who pursues the victory. Jonathan's the kind of person who says, I'm not afraid of the battle. I'm going to take myself, I'm going to put myself in, and I'm going to see the victory before me. We cannot be like Saul and constantly just putting ourselves in, oh, well, I'm just going to wait over here. I'm just waiting for the Lord to come. Especially when the calling has already come, that God said, you are king. So he's supposed to reign. He's supposed to lead them to fight their battles. But constantly we're going to see Saul's in the background. Saul's the one who's not pursuing the enemy, whereas it is Jonathan who is constantly seeking, where can we find a victory? Where can we get on the battlefield? And so as we see in 1 Samuel 13:4, all Israel heard say that Saul had smitten a garrison of the Philistines, and that Israel also, who had an abomination with the Philistines, and the people were called together after Saul to Gilgal. And then jumping into chapter 13, verse 5. And the Philistines gathered themselves together to fight with Israel, 30,000 chariots and 6,000 horsemen, and people as the sand which is of the seashore in multitude. And they came up and pitched in Michmash, eastward of Bethel. And so here's the thing. Jonathan goes out. He gets this great victory. They blow the trumpets. They tell everyone about how great this is throughout all of the land. But the Philistines, they don't just act in a measured response. They come out with everything they basically have. They send all their chariots, all their horsemen, and they send, as it says here, men as the sand by the seaside. And so then jumping into 1 Samuel chapter 13, verse 6 through 7, when the men of Israel saw that they were in a strait, for the people were distressed, that the people did hide themselves in caves and in thickets and in rocks and in high places and in pits. And some of the Hebrew went over Jordan to the land of God in Gilead. As for Saul, he was yet in Gilgal, and all the people following him trembled. So again, we see this massive force of the Philistines that they bring back. And we see that it's to the extent that it causes the people, the warriors, the soldiers in Saul's army, to some of them to flee, some of them to hide themselves. Maybe learn that one from the king. And others of them, the ones that were brave enough to at least stay with Saul, were trembling. I bet you they're not feeling great about the king idea at this point. We'll see in a moment, though, that the whole army was shaking because they were focused on the king of Israel. Whereas Jonathan, we see, was unmoved because he was focusing on the King of Kings. That is the vast difference we see between Saul and that we see between Jonathan. Jonathan constantly saw the kingdom Saul constantly saw the kingdom as his own. His thing that he possessed, that it was all his power, this, his. Jonathan always saw the kingdom as God's kingdom. He never thought, oh, well, then I have any right to anything here. No, he said, this is all God's. And because of that, he understood who his God was as well. It wasn't all the weight on him as Saul was, because if it's all on you, then all the weight's on you. But when it is God's kingdom and that you know that he sits on the throne, then it is for him to move and that he will be the one who fights your battles. So as we see in 1 Samuel 13, 19 through 22, now there was no smith found throughout all the land of Israel. For the Philistines said, lest the Hebrews make themselves swords and spears. But all the Israelites went down to Philistines to sharpen every man a share in his coulter, in his axe, in his matlock. And it talks here that then all the men who came to war, none of them had actual weapons, except for the men who were directly with Jonathan and Saul. And this is kind of like a little bit of a sidestep here. But this is one of those things that I think we can take a spiritual reference from this. Sometimes we get in our lives and we have so many things that we're thinking, oh, I just don't got any weapons. I don't have anything to take into this fight. Oh, I can't do things in ministry. Oh, I can't do things in the kingdom of God because I don't have anything. Then start sharpening your axe. Start sharpening your plow. Start sharpening anything that you have, any gift that God has given you, any talent that he has given you. Start using that in the kingdom now. Start preparing yourself to battle for the kingdom of God. Stop putting yourself on the sideline and say, oh, well, I'm just this. I'm just outside. It's for the pastor to do the Bible studies. It's for him to greet the people. It's for him to reach out to those people who don't make it. Oh, it's for him to do all these things. And we can so many times throw all that on him. And we can just use excuses like, oh, I don't got that talent. Oh, I can't speak with a mic. Oh, well, I can't sing. I can't do this. I can't play an instrument. God's saying, I can use whatever you give me. God has literally told us, I will make beauty from your ashes. And he can make weapons from your gardening tools. So whatever you have, even if it's just time, if you just have time, let God use that time. If it's just contact that you make with people, if you're just personable, if you like to speak, let God use that. Don't put those things away. Don't lock your stuff in the shed. Get on the battlefield. And I think one of the things to me is, I believe even to the extent of this, that even the things that we have fallen down on, even our past sins, God is looking to take those things out and turn them into weapons against the enemy. He's saying if you had an addiction in your life, if you had some sin that you just couldn't, it was wrapped around, you couldn't do it, let God set you free and then let him use you to bring others out. If he's saying you've gone through a situation, you've gone through a disease, you've gone through something, when God has brought you out, he's saying bring others with you. He's saying take the chain that the enemy put around your neck, sharpen it, make it into a weapon, and go into the enemy's camp and show him that he is to not mess around with the children of God. And jumping kind of back here into our story in 1 Samuel chapter 14 and verse 1, and this is one of my favorite stories in all the Bible. Now it came to pass upon a day that Jonathan, the son of Saul, said unto the young man that bare his armor, come and let us go to the Philistines' garrison that is on the other side. But he told not his father. So again, this is where we see reference that Jonathan's acting on his own. Saul, again, is away, and he's thinking, oh, well, I'm waiting for the right opportunity. I'm waiting for the right thing, and his men are sitting there trembling. Jonathan's here with just one man, his armor bearer, the guy who would carry his equipment for him so he doesn't exhaust himself. And he's saying, what if we just go over there? What if we just win? What if it's just right there before us? Jonathan didn't stay in fear like the rest of the army. He grabbed his armor bearer and he sought the battle. Jonathan is not a blind follower and is not willing to give into the feelings of the rest of the army. Just because everyone else was terrified, just because what the force they saw, he wasn't looking at that. Because where everyone else was looking at the enemy, Jonathan was looking at his God. And this is one of those places where we see, even from a very early point, that Jonathan and David had the same heart. Because just as David didn't see a giant before him, he only saw the victory God was going to bring. The same is true for Jonathan here. And so one of the things we have to understand is in our life, they say actions speak louder than words. And that is very true. The way you war, especially your spiritual warfare, says what you believe about your God. It says who you think your God is. If you're only looking for the battles that are just, oh, this is so easy, it's going to win. I could do this myself. Or are you looking for the big, impossible situations and saying, God, this is only going to happen if you get involved. God, this is only going to happen if you fight this battle for me. And as we see, we're going to jump into verse 4 of 14. And between the passages by which Jonathan sought to go over into the Philistines' garrison, there was a sharp rock on the one side and a sharp rock on the other side. And the name of the one was Bozez, and the name of the other was Sinah. Boaz means slippery, which I found that was funny. And Sinah means sharp, which also is funny to me because it just said sharp rocks on both sides, and then they named it sharp. Pretty straightforward. I don't know about you. When I'm looking at places that I'm going to attack the enemy, I don't look for the cliff face that's in between the sharp and the slippery. Like sharp and slippery, those together, that's just dangerous. But we don't only have a God who is a God of the hills or a God of the valleys. We have a God that is even God in between the sharp and the slippery, even between the worst seasons of your life, even between all the hardships when everything is falling apart. We have a God who is God of every situation. And this, again, is something that Jonathan knew and why he was willing to pursue forward. As we jump into verse 6 through 7, Jonathan said unto the young man that bare his armor, come and let us go over into the garrison of these uncircumcised. It may be that the Lord will work for us. In this line here that many of us probably know, but maybe not all of us knew that who said it. For there is no restraint to the Lord to save by many or by few. And his armor bearer said unto him, do all that is in thine heart. Turn thee, behold, I am with thee according to thy heart. In this life, it is so easy to find millions of reasons of why we can't. But if we could just become the people who believe this truth, that God is not restrained to save by many or by few, and that he is the God of all things, that no matter the situation, he rules and he is in control, that we do not serve a God of defeat, but we serve a God of victory. And one of the things here I think that kind of gets overshadowed, yes, I love that line. And again, Jonathan's one of my favorite characters. I also love the armor bearer. Like, I don't know about you. I just explained the slippery and sharp, and I just explained he's going directly into the enemy that's as the sand by the seaside. That is what he's looking at. He's like, yeah, let's go do it, guys. In his armor bearer, like you would think most people would be like, nope. Or would be like starting with, you're crazy. I can't believe that you would even think this. No, he says, whatever is in your heart, I am with you. We need to find ourselves someone like that in the church. And it is so important to bind yourself to a brother or a sister in the church who, no matter what, is your ride or die, who is going to be there for you when you need it, who is going to push with you till you get the breakthrough. Someone who is going to lock arms with you and say, I'm not going to give up on you. The things that you're pursuing, I am pursuing with you. I'm going to pray with you. I'm going to fast with you. I am going to be with you. I'm going to encourage you. We all need that. We all need an armor bearer, and we all need to be an armor bearer for others. As we see, as we will see here soon, it is when we have that person that we can trust, that person that we can rely on, that person who has our back no matter what, is when we can get the victories that no one else could have believed in. As we jump into verse 8 through 10 here, then said Jonathan, behold, we will pass over unto these men, and we will discover ourselves unto them. If they say unto us, tarry until we come to you, then we will stand still in our place, and we will not go up unto them. But if they say to us, come up unto us, and then we will go up, the Lord hath delivered them into our hand, and this shall be a sign unto us. Now, discovering there what he's saying is, then that phrase he's saying, we're going to let them know we're here. And so again, Jonathan was just looking for any other way that he could say, like, how can I make this impossible? How can I truly make this something to God? You would think if you're going to sneak up on a garrison is what you would, actually, even in that phrase, you think sneaking is the trick here. You're thinking, oh, well, maybe if we get in, they don't realize it. We wait till nighttime when everyone's asleep. We'll go in there. We'll slaughter a few people. We'll make this happen. He's saying, how about we go over there? Before we climb up the scary death, slippery, sharp ridge, we're going to yell, hey, it's me, the prince. Hey, it's my armor bearer. You guys want to battle? Want to see what happens? And what I like also about it is when we look, his answer that God's not going to do this. So like he's seeking, he's saying, we'll let God decide this by how the enemy reacts. The no answer is we're going to stay in the safety where we are, down on the ridge. The yes answer is come up to us. He didn't even make the easy answer, like, you know what I mean? Like, he didn't even say, like, okay, God, if you're saying this is it, that means we're going to go up there. That means there's no turning back. He even put himself in a position where there was no turning back. You can't go back down the cliffside. He's putting himself up against a wall, and he's telling the enemy, I'm coming. But that is the faith that he has. That is the faith that he shows us here. And jumping into verse 11 through 14, and both of them discovered themselves into the garrison of the Philistines. And the Philistines said, behold, the Hebrews have come forth out of their holes and have hid themselves. And the man of the garrison answered Jonathan, his armor bearer, come up to us, and we will show you a thing. And Jonathan said unto his armor bearer, come up after me, for the Lord hath delivered them into the hand of Israel. And Jonathan climbed up upon his hands and upon his feet, and his armor bearer after him. And they fell before Jonathan, and his armor bearer slew them. And that first slaughter which Jonathan and his armor bearer made was about 20 men, within as it was a half acre of a land, which is a yoke of oxen might plow. Which I don't know about you, when they said, let's show you a thing, I felt like that was like the biggest diss ever. And I don't know if that maybe even put a little more fire in Jonathan, but what I love is then they climb up there. And it talks about that. And what I even like is the way that it talks about how they fought. It says that Jonathan knocked them down. So I'm assuming, and now again, I can't say for exact here, but I'm assuming he slashed them or he put them in a place where they hit the ground. And as they hit the ground, they're laying there. It was his armor bearer coming in the back and finishing it off. And again, how important it is that we have someone watching our back, that we have someone helping us pick up the pieces as we're knocking things down, as we're making progress, as we are getting breakthrough, someone who is behind us through and through. And you might even sit there and think, 20 men, that doesn't sound that much. When you're talking about men like as in the sand, that just seems like nothing, doesn't even seem like a number. But the thing is, Jonathan didn't go into this fight with just him and his armor bearer. He also had the Lord on his side. And we see in verse 15 through 16, and there was a trembling in the host, in the field, and among all the people in the garrison and the spoilers. They also trembled, and the earth quaked, so that it was a very great trembling. And the watchmen of Saul in Gibeah and Benjamin looked, and behold, the multitude melted away, and they went on beating down one another. So again, we see he may have only slid 20 people, but he started something. His faith drove them to kind of scatter abroad. And then God came in also and didn't just leave it to what Jonathan had done, but came in and put an earthquake in place as well. And it was in all that terror and all of the commotion and all the scattering and all the panic of the army that they started attacking each other, that they were slaying each other, to the point that when Saul hears about it, because he hears the noise, he feels the trembling, he comes out and his men are saying, they're killing each other. Everyone's just running about. Everyone's dying. And so we jump here into verse 20 through 23. Well, actually, I should say, this is one of those places that I want to point out, again, if you are putting everything that you do, if it is always in the scope of what you can do with your own two hands, you will only ever see what you can do, what you can accomplish before you. But when you go and you face something that is on the scope that only God can come in, only if God intervenes, that's where we see the miracles. That's where we see it. It's about having that faith with God and about him leading us to those victories. So again, jumping into verse 20 through 23, and Saul and all the people that were with him assembled themselves, and they came to battle, and behold, every man's sword was against his fellow, and there was a great discomfort. Moreover, the Hebrews that were with the Philistines before that time, which went up with them into the camp from the country round about, even they also who turned to be with the Israelites that were with Saul and Jonathan, likewise all the men of Israel which had hid themselves in the Mount Ephraim, when they heard that the Philistines fled, even they also followed hard after them in the battle. So the Lord saved Israel that day, and the battle passed over Beth-aven. So what I love here is that we're not only seeing that God got involved and started taking the whole army down from one or two men's actions, I should say, in faith. It inspired those who had already turned away, the men who had hid themselves, the men who had left the army, who said, oh, no, we can't face this, that when they start seeing the breakthrough happen, that when they start seeing the miracle happen, that when they start seeing God pouring out in this and fighting for their side, that it encourages them and puts a fire back in them. So we need to understand for ourselves here what we can take away is that not only when we seek the breakthrough, that when we get the breakthrough, that it's going to encourage those around us. That I'm not only seeking a breakthrough because I need a breakthrough in my life. I need you to see that there's breakthroughs happening. I need you to see that God is still moving, that God is still powerful, that when we push forward in faith, that God will answer. That we are not those who seek a king here on earth, that we are those who say, you know, God is going to fight my battles. God is going to be my banner. God is going to go out before me. When we get ourselves in that place, that is where we truly can become someone else's armor bearer. When we are starting to get the breakthrough, that's when we're encouraging others that, hey, go ahead. Now, what do you need? What do you need prayed for? What situation can I help you with? How can I encourage you? How can I bond with you? How can I be that support? One of the things about the phrase that we know from the Bible, iron sharpeneth iron, you have to be iron to help that process. And I intend to be that for my brothers and my sisters. I intend to be that person who will back them up no matter what, who gives them courage to step on the battlefield without fear, who lets them know that, hey, you don't even have to look back. Keep pushing forward because I got them. Anything that makes it past you, I'm here. I will take care of it. You know, one of the phrases I've kind of always held on to my life is, no one who stays on the boat walks on the water. And this is from where Peter, the story of Jesus, that he walks out to him. We always like to attack Peter because he sunk, because he saw the waves, and oh my goodness, but we never talk about the 11 who are still in the boat. And the same is true in our lives. If we want to see miracles, if we want to see God move, if we want to see his kingdom push forward, we need to get out on the battlefield. We need to get out on the water. We need to understand that when God said that the gates of hell are not going to prevail against you, that's a defensive measure. He was already saying that you're going to be in the enemy's camp. And so we need to see in our lives, we need to get on the battlefield. We need to see miracles. There are too many lost people. There are too many sinners out there. There are too many backslidden people that we can even know, that are connected to us, for us just to stay idly by, sitting there like Saul, waiting to see what will happen, waiting for that perfect opportunity. No, we need to get out on the battlefield. That even when it's hard, even when the battlefield is between the slippery and the sharp place, we need to have faith that our God is able. That no matter what the forces look like before us, our God is greater. One of the things that, they always say the phrase, never leave money on the table. Which for anyone, I know, I actually learned that from the Carpenters when they were first getting in the food truck business. I had heard that and I had to look it up because I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I like that. But it's basically just the idea of that you always, if there is a chance or an opportunity that you can make, you always make sure that you do it. You never want to leave money on the table. You always want to pursue every opportunity. The same is true with miracles, with breakthroughs in our life. We should be seeking every opportunity and not leaving any victory that God is giving us on the table. Many times in my life, I've constantly reminded myself of King Joash, which maybe you guys don't know that one off the top of the head. Basically, he was the king of Israel at the time of Elijah, as Elijah is about to die. Elijah goes to him and basically tells him, hey, take this bow, shoot it out the window. And this is going to be you going against, this is God saying that you are going to go against the Syrians. And then he says, take an arrow and slash the ground. And he only slashes 3 times. And it gets, Elijah loses himself. Why did you stop? He said, if you had done 5 or 6 times, you'd have completely overwhelmed the enemy. He was saying God was giving you the victory, the complete and total victory, and you stopped short. I remind myself of that story so many times because I never want to be in a place where I stop short. That when God still had victories for me, when God had victories for my brothers and sisters, when there was things that if it was just 20 men, that was going to be in my life, something that small compared to a massive army, that it was going to spark something that was going to encourage my brothers and sisters, that we were going to see breakthrough unfolding in the church. And I just don't want to be in a place we need to always be reminding ourselves. Again, we don't know when God's going to call us. We don't know when God's going to say, this is your moment. We don't know when the battlefield's always going to be there, so we always need to be prepared. And we always need to be seeking God's will and what he has for us. So I'm going to really shorthand the back section of this sermon. So I do apologize that this is going to be kind of jumping through a lot here. Unfortunately, so yes, they have this massive victory as we see. Jonathan brings this victory for the children of Israel. Unfortunately, to those who know the rest of the story, Saul, as I said, makes basically every wrong decision you possibly can. He doesn't wait for Samuel for the full time. He ends up doing the sacrifices himself, which is him stepping into the priesthood, which is absolutely not allowed. And then later on, when he's coming up against the Amorites, he's sitting there and he's told directly to completely and utterly destroy them and all their possessions. But he ends up saving the sheep and he ends up saving the oxen. And then Samuel comes and confronts him about it. And then he digs his heels in and makes it worse by saying, oh, well, I did it for offerings, which is absolutely not the truth, but his way of trying to find out, to the point that God says, okay, well, the kingdom's not yours anymore. It is gone from you. One of the things I love, too, about that is that's where we get the verse that obedience is better than sacrifices. That is obedience to God, which is the most important thing. And what I love is that, you have Samuel, who, again, at this point is a very elderly man, says, okay, well, then you didn't do the right thing. I'm going to show you what to do. He takes the sword and he just slaughters the king of the Amorites. because they had spared him. He said, bring him to me. And this elderly man just completely slaughters him. Why? Because he was showing right in front of Saul's face. That's what obedience looks like. God said, do it. I did it. And I didn't turn to the left or the right. And so we see this whole situation. Kingdom's been removed from Saul. That also means, because God said specifically it was not going to be his lineage, the kingdom was removed for Jonathan. And this wasn't even Jonathan's, had nothing to do with Jonathan's actions. It wasn't even his doings. And everything that we see in Jonathan, he's a selfless, humble, noble, obedient person, faithful. But the kingdom's removed from him even, because now no longer in Saul's lineage. And then we see a little shepherd boy coming up, and he faces a giant. He knocks the giant down, gains great fame. And what I love here, I'm going to go ahead and scroll down. So if you could go to 1 Samuel 18, 1 through 3. And this is right after David defeats Goliath. What I love is we have what's going to be the new king coming here. And it says, and it came to pass that when he had made it in his speaking unto Saul, that the soul of Jonathan was knit with the soul of David. And Jonathan loved him as his own soul. And Saul took him that day and would let him go, or no longer let him go home to his father's house. Then Jonathan and David made a covenant because he loved him as his own soul. What I love is, think about in the position where Jonathan is. And think about the position that most people would be. That you see this person, everyone's too terrified to face this giant, and this little shepherd boy comes and just gets him with a stone and then cuts his head off. All that glory pouring on him. Think about how many people would take that as the negative. Oh, well, anyone could have done that. Or, oh, I can't believe he did. Saul immediately, he is so knit with David, with his soul, because he loves him, because they are one of the same people. They are like spirits. And again, goes back to him with his armor bearer. It's the same situation. He saw that same spirit in David, and it gave them a binding together to the point that they made a covenant with each other. So again, we know this propels David. He marries Saul's daughter, so now he's in nobility. He continues winning battles and gets greater and greater fame, up to the point that Saul sees and makes pretty clear, this is going to be the one God takes, that he makes the new king. This is the man. This is the one who's going to take it from me. To the point where he confronts David and ends up throwing a javelin at him. David has to flee. And then Jonathan goes out to David, because again, they are knit together. So we see Jonathan goes out, they make the special code of hey, I just want to make sure, David's warning him, your dad's trying to kill me. And he's like, I don't know about that, man. And so they make this special code. I'm going to paraphrase real shorthand here. They make this code with him going out with his archer boy, and that he's going to send his servant, and if it goes past him, it's to say to David, no, Saul is coming to kill you. You need to flee. Or if he says to come back and bring it back, then it was a sign that, hey, no, you're going to return. Everything's fine. When they go and they plan this whole thing around the feast, Jonathan confronts Saul. Saul then throws a spear at Jonathan when he defends David, and he sees, oh, yes, it is evil out for David. Which, again, imagine not only Jonathan's situation that your father just about killed you, the breaking in his heart knowing that David has to flee. The breaking in his heart of seeing what is being torn from his life. Again, not his choices, not his actions. That this is being removed, that this is happening to someone that he loves even above himself. And so we see here in 1 Samuel 20, 41 through 42, and as soon as the lad was gone, David arose out of the place towards the south and fell on his face to the ground and bowed himself 3 times and kissed one another and wept one another until David exceeded. And Jonathan said to David, go in peace, for as much as we have both sworn of us in the name of the Lord, saying, the Lord between me and thee and between my seed and thy seed forever. And he arose and departed, and Jonathan went into the city. So again, this was their farewell. He doesn't know if he's ever going to see David again. He doesn't know that David's going to survive this onslaught and this chase from Saul. And so we have what is coming up, the last recorded words that we see from Jonathan. And it's in 1 Samuel 23 and 16 through 18. And this is where David's been discovered in the woods. The information gets back to Jonathan, and Jonathan goes out to him. So again, this is a fugitive. This is the person his father hates more than anyone, that he wants to see dead. But Jonathan's willing to take the risk to go and encourage his brother, to go to the man that he said that he loves him greater than his own soul, that his very soul was knit to this person. And it says, and Jonathan, Saul's son, arose and went to David into the wood and strengthened his hand in God. And how much more do we again, take reference from what Jonathan's doing here. That when your brother is going through it, when your brother is being chased out, when your brother is having the fight of their life, that you go and you meet him wherever he is, and that you strengthen his hand in the God. And he said unto him, fear not, for the hand of Saul my father shall not find thee, and thou shalt be king over Israel, and I shall be next unto thee, and that also Saul my father knoweth. And they two made a covenant before the Lord, and David abode in the wood, and Jonathan went to his house. One of the things I love again here, we take example from Jonathan. Whereas Saul, the kingdom was his. Any part that he was going to lose, he was against you because it was his. How dare you? Jonathan knew that the kingdom was God's. And this is why Jonathan understood that a victory for my brother is a victory for me. That he was going to glorify him. That's why he's saying to him, even though it means my lineage is like Jonathan knows, I'm not taking the throne. I know my sons are not taking the throne. I don't care. And I want you to strengthen you and encourage you. You will survive this. That my father is trying to pursue you, but he will not find you. And that you will sit on the throne. And that he himself, your enemy, understands that and knows that. And then again, making that covenant with each other. And I love how the covenant he binds with him is not just for me. He's making a covenant past his own life and past David's life. To the house of David, he's saying, I don't care, me and my seed after me, that my sons, my sons' sons, that we will always be bound to you, that we are always knit with you. Again, these are the things that we need to find in the church. These are the things that are available. There are brothers. And when I say church, I'm saying body as a whole. Maybe it's not in this building specifically. That is okay. As long as you have someone who can go to bat with you, someone who will help you in those times of need, that you can confide in completely, that will encourage you in your darkest hours, who knows that they can reach out to you, who knows they can speak truth to you, who can help you in the hard times, who will help you through the breakthroughs, or get to your breakthroughs, I should say. You need that, and we need to find that. We all need to be a Jonathan to someone, and we all need to find a Jonathan. One of the last things here that I'll be touching on, and then I'll be coming to a close if musician would like to come up already. So now, again, to those who know the end of the story, Jonathan's fate isn't exactly great. Philistines come back as mighty and as powerful as they possibly can be. Israel goes out to war with him. That includes Saul. And Jonathan, being as loyal as he is, joins Saul in that battle and falls in that battle with Saul. And so we know that David is completely crushed by this. But we see in 2 Samuel chapter 9, verse 1, he never forgot the word that he had with Jonathan. It says, and David said, is there yet anyone left of the house of Saul, that I may show kindness for Jonathan's sake? 2 Samuel 9, 7-8 tells us, and David said unto him, and this is him speaking to Mephibosheth, which is the one son that they found, who was lame on both feet, because when Saul and Jonathan were killed, his nurse at the time believed, oh, well, then they're going to come for the heirs. So upon fleeing, dropped him and hurt him. And he was crippled for the rest of his life. Again, they didn't have modern medicine, so he was basically useless to where his situation was. And this is where David says, he tells his servants, go find me a son of Saul, if there be any left, that I can show kindness for the kindness that was shown to me, for the bond that I made to a man, that I had said was going to be my seed and his seed, that was never going to falter. Let me go find that man. And then he brings Mephibosheth, which again was a cripple. For all we know, he was a beggar at this time, brings him to his castle. And David said unto him, fear not, for I will surely show thee kindness for Jonathan thy father's sake, and will restore thee all the land of Saul thy father, and thou shalt eat bread at my table continually. And he bowed himself and said, what is thy servant that thou shouldest look upon such a dead dog as I am? What I love here is it's him understanding the situation, him humbling himself to saying that I am just a dead dog before you. I think it's what David does here, I think is a beautiful analogy of God's love for sinners, personally, and how we have all come to him. Because Mephibosheth didn't seek David. He didn't even probably know that David was even going to look, that he was even paying attention to him. David did all the work to seek him out, to find him and to bring him to him. And then he restores him a kingdom, basically, a portion of his kingdom. And then he gives him honor to say, you're going to sit at my table for the rest of your life. You are going to eat with me. And what happens? Mephibosheth becomes a lifelong servant of David's, to the point that we see later on down the line that there are multiple honorable warriors that are born from his bloodline. And all this is because of the actions of one man named Jonathan. And so this is where I challenge all of us, church, as my title says, in a world of Sauls where it is so easy to be cowardice, where it is so easy to see the things that you have been given as your own, focus your eyes on God. Realize that everything that we have been given is his and his alone, that he is almighty and all-powerful, that we don't have to wait around just for the perfect opportunity to come, that we can get on the battlefield today. If we prepare our hearts and we make ourselves ready, when God calls, we will see the victory. Have that faith, have that belief, and know that when we have that commitment, when we have that faith, that this does not just benefit you. This bleeds over to your children and your children's children and your children's children's children. So if you could, I will open up, if you would like to come to the altar to prepare ourselves, Lord, is what if you would like, you can pray where you are or come to the altar, but I ask that we all seek God and say, Lord, reveal in me my own heart. Is my heart that of Jonathan's? Is my spirit set like that of Jonathan or David's? Do I have a brother, Lord, who I know I can trust on? Do I have an armor bearer, Lord? Who is it, Lord, in this body that is seeking an armor bearer that you have positioned me to be in?